Welcome. My name is Jana Hubble, and I'm a gifted teacher in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Thank you for joining me for our presentation, Preparing a Gifted IEP, a Gifted Teacher's How-To Guide. In today's presentation, we'll begin with a brief introduction, including the intended audience, the purpose of the presentation, and a quick look at the presentation handout. Then we'll move into a complete, detailed how-to guide for preparing an IEP. We'll break this into three main sections: 8 weeks, 7 weeks, and 6 weeks before the IEP anniversary date. If you prepare an IEP using this timeline, you'll have the entire draft finished at least a week before your IEP meeting. And then last, we'll conclude with a summary of the presentation and a link to the digital interactive version of the IEP to-do list, as well as some other handy links. This professional development presentation has been specifically geared toward academic enrichment GT teachers in Terrebonne Parish schools. Many of the electronic systems and departmental guidelines referred to in the presentation are used specifically in our parish. However, any gifted teacher may find some helpful tips for preparing an IEP in an organized way. The ultimate purpose of this presentation is to provide a detailed how-to for preparing an academic enrichment IEP for academically gifted students in grades 1 to 6 in Terrebonne Parish elementary and middle schools. The handout provided for this presentation is actually the IEP to-do list I use when preparing gifted IEPs. Please use it as a reference throughout the presentation. Make a copy of that to-do list each time you begin preparing an IEP for a different student. Fill in the identification and date information at the top. In our parish, we're required to set the IEP meeting about a month before the anniversary date. This will allow for some cushion in case you need to reschedule. The whole IEP prep process will begin about 8 weeks before the IEP anniversary date. First, email the student's homeroom teacher to confirm their planning period time on the tentative date of the IEP meeting. I keep an email template titled Template Request for Your Planning Period saved in my Outlook school mail email account, so I don't have to rewrite that email each time I plan a new IEP. After you complete each step, you can click in the to-do box to the left of the instructions. In the interactive digital version of the list, the item will then appear to be struck through and complete. Now it's time to take that tentative IEP date and place it in the Shared School IEP Dates Google Calendar. I also place it on my personal IEP dates chart that I keep in Google Drive that lists all of my own students' IEP dates. You'll notice many of the items on this to-do list contain blue hyperlinks. By clicking on these, you'll be directed straight to the website or Google Doc necessary for that step, saving you some time and effort. Next, it's time to message the student's family member through school status to check if your tentative meeting date is convenient for them. School status is the secure communication program our school district uses for all school and home communication. At this point, you've done all the tasks that should be completed about 8 weeks before the IEP anniversary date. About a week later, you'll begin working on tasks listed as 7 weeks before anniversary date. It's time to firm up your IEP meeting date and time. By then, you'll have heard back from the student's homeroom teacher confirming their planning period. You'll have heard back from the family member confirming the proposed meeting date or possibly suggesting an alternative date. In Google Calendar, confirm or change the meeting date and time if needed. Then click the blue button that says Add Google Meet Conferencing to create a Google Meet link you can share with the rest of the members. The button will then say Join with Google Meet. Also, add the IEP team's email addresses by adding guests. Click Save, and when prompted, send invitations to everyone you've added. This will share the date, time, and the Google Meet link with the various IEP collaborators. Next, you'll click the parental notification hyperlink and create your official parental notification of the meeting. Be sure to copy that Google Meet link you generated, pasting it into the parental notification. Save the completed document in that student's special ed folder in your school's shared folder in Google Drive. Now you'll email the parent or family member your newly created parental notification and a PDF copy of Louisiana's Educational Rights of Gifted Talented Children booklet. You'll also print out a hard copy of that parental notification, send it home with the student in their take home folder so they can give it to their family member. Now it's time to begin gathering input from everyone. Begin by emailing the student's teachers to ask for teacher comments about the student's strengths, skills, academic weaknesses, classroom behavior, peer interactions, etc. Then it's time to gather data. If you have access to the student's STAR reading and math scores and Achieve scores, look those up. Note their current scores. Consider how they compare to the previous scores. If you don't have access to those databases, email your school's instructional content leader, ICL, vice principal, or computer lab teacher to send the data to you. Log those scores in the IEP to-do list to save for later. You'll also gather some comments from the student. Ask the student about their academic strengths and weaknesses, their extracurricular interests, how they would describe themselves, what career they might like to have one day. I like to use a digital survey for this, so I created a Google Slides activity that my students complete in my Google Classroom. I can refer to their answers in the slide deck later on when I begin writing the draft of the IEP. Now you've completed all the tasks that should be completed about 7 weeks before the IEP anniversary date. About a week later, you'll begin working on tasks listed as 6 weeks before the anniversary date. This is actually about 1 to 2 weeks before the IEP meeting that's scheduled. So now it's time to write the IEP draft. You'll need to gather up the last bit of data, report cards, grades, and LEAP scores. For report card grades, just log into JCampus, our school district's data management system. Locate the most recent set of report card grades and log them into the to-do list. You'll also access the student's LEAP standardized test scores in JCampus. Note the most recent LEAP test date and scores and log them into the to-do list as well. Consider how those scores compare to the previous year's scores. Once you have all that data that you need, you can begin drafting the IEP. You will use a program called ESER, which stands for Enhanced Special Education Reporting System. Go to the student's profile and select IEP from the top bar, then selecting IEP list from the drop-down. After that, the IEP list page will appear. Next to the IEP list words, select the big plus sign to create a new IEP. You'll see a pop-up window prompting you to select the type of IEP. If this is a brand new GT student, you'll need to select Initial IEP. If this is one of your current students on an anniversary IEP, just select Review IEP. For our example today, we'll choose Review IEP. Then click Add. Now you'll be looking at a new blank IEP. The IEP is separated into sections. You begin working in the General Student Information section, which has 5 separate tabs. To begin working in the tabs, you'll need to check out the section by clicking the gray checkout button. All the blanks that were once grayed out will now become white, and you'll be able to edit them. For a type of IEP category, you'll select Gifted Talented. For type, Review will already be selected for you, so you won't have to change it at all. Then add the team meeting date, which is the scheduled date of your IEP meeting. The grade level and home base school will already be filled out for you, so don't change those. You will leave the other school location blank since GT students are already based at their home base school and they are not at an alternative site. Since you're gifted students either in elementary or middle school and not reaching the age of majority just yet, you'll not click on the age of majority box. However, you will click on the educational rights of gifted talented children box since you've already emailed the parent a copy of that document. Only click the Section 504 plan box if they've been identified as needing one. Creating a 504 plan would be covered in a different training. When you're done with this whole tab, go ahead and click Save. After the Basic Information tab, select the Evaluation tab. Since students only require a reevaluation every 3 years, generally you will not have to do anything on this page. The evaluation or waiver date and exceptionality are already listed and they're already correct. You can move immediately to the next tab, the Participants tab. This is where you'll list every IEP team member. A few choices are listed for you there, but you may not need all of them. For example, this is a review IEP, and the presence of a school psychologist or educational diagnostician is not required. So you can actually delete these participants by clicking on the trash cans next to them. Once you've deleted any participants you don't need, edit the parent line. You'll always be inviting a parent or guardian to the meeting, so you will need that. Click the Edit button on the parent line, and an Add Edit Participant box will pop up. Here you can add the first and last name of the family member attending and save the changes. Next, you'll add the other team members by clicking the plus sign button. For this review IEP meeting to take place, there will need to be present at very least the parent or guardian, you, the GT teacher, one of the student's regular education teachers, and an ODR, which is an officially designated representative of the school who's qualified to supervise IEP meetings. The student should also be included in the meeting if possible, especially if they're competent to make some valuable contributions during that meeting. Now, keep in mind, there may be other participants depending on the student, such as additional family members or teachers, a speech therapist, a counselor, etc. Each of these should be listed as participants here if they apply. After participants, click on the General Student Information tab. For each section on this tab, you'll need to select the pencil icon to the right of the text box. Anytime you select one of those pencil icons, a box will pop up allowing you to edit the section. The first section, General Information about Student, including student interests, is where you'll write a brief entry that includes the student's current grade level, interests within school, outside of school, plans for after high school, extracurricular activities, etc. You should make this section as personal as possible. This is where you'll be able to use all that good information you gathered when your student answered the interview questions in the Google Slides activity they completed for you. Now, please note, you should not use names in these sections. Refer to everyone as the student's parents, or the teacher. No names. After general student information, you'll move to the strengths section, where you'll describe the student's strengths, which can be taken directly from the initial evaluation, relative strengths that you're inferring from standardized tests, and classroom strengths. In this section, I refer to the teacher's response to the email I sent them requesting comments. I also include my own observations of the student's strengths demonstrated during my lessons in GT. And then last, I refer to the student interview Google Slides that the student completed, and I include their own perceptions of their own academic strengths. The section after strengths is parental concerns. You will describe any concerns that the parent has shared with you since the last annual IEP meeting. If they haven't related any concerns to you since then, you can write, "Parent is satisfied with the current program and placement." Keep in mind that in an actual IEP meeting, the parent may share concerns with you, in which case you'll have to delete these comments and then include the new comments from the parents. The next section is the evaluation reevaluation results. In our school district, GT students do not receive another full evaluation by a pupil appraisal evaluator every 3 years, like other students with special needs do. Therefore, you'll simply repaste the evaluation information that was written on the IEP, the initial IEP. The next section is input from regular teacher. Refer to the email response you received from the student's regular ed teacher. Include any information they noted about the student's strengths, weaknesses, behavior, and peer interactions. The teacher will always be present in the IEP meeting as well, so that's another good time to ask for some extra comments that they may want you to add to the IEP. The next section in this tab is statewide assessments. Students in third grade and younger, they don't have any statewide assessments on record yet. For these students, just write, there are no statewide assessments at this time due to young age. For students in fourth grade and over who have taken a statewide assessment, list the name of the standardized test, such as LEAP, the date they took the test, and the results for each subject. You pulled that information previously from JCampus, so you should already have it logged in your IEP to-do list. You can get the information easily from there. The last section in the General Student Information tab is pertinent social emotional information, including behavior concerns. In this section, list any social or emotional issues the student struggles with that affects their behavior or academic performance at home or school. If there aren't any, you can simply write, there are no pertinent social, emotional, or behavioral concerns at this time. Remember, the family member will be present at the IEP meeting, so this is another good time to ask for additional concerns they may have that they'd like you to add to the IEP. You may now select the final tab, Special Factors. Unless there are any social emotional issues that will be addressed by the school through the IEP, simply click Academic and/or Enrichment next to Educational Needs. Then you can click Save and check the section back in. Excuse me. Next, you'll go back to IEP section at the top where it says General Student Information. Choose Instructional Plan from the drop-down. This section does look empty, so you'll need to click on Check Out first so you can use the section. You'll click the plus sign to add a new instructional plan. When you click that plus sign, a section called Educational Need Area will pop up. Select Academic and/or Enrichment and click Save. On your new instructional plan page, leave Educational Need Area as Academic and/or Enrichment. In the Content Area box, type the word Enrichment, and in the Course box, select Gifted Enrichment, pull out No Credit. The next box is for present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. Like you have before, you'll click on the little pencil icon to write in the text box. In the pop-up box, you'll include the most recent report card grades and the current STAR and Achieve scores. But no worries, you already logged all of these in your IEP to-do list. Pull the info straight from the to-do list to put it back in this section. Next, you'll click on the second little pencil icon to enter the measurable academic functional goal. In this pop-up box, you'll write out the standard goal for the academic enrichment program in our district. The student will increase their knowledge basis across the curriculum as he or she completes assignments and creates teacher and student-selected projects that require research and critical thinking skills that are completed to the satisfaction of the teacher. In the next text box, don't forget to press save. In the next text box, method of measurement, you'll select projects from the drop-down list. In the additional methods of measurement box, you'll include all of the ways GT teachers measure performance in the gifted program. Rubrics, completed projects, work samples, field trips, progress reports. Don't add anything to the box for date a goal achieved. The student hasn't achieved the goal yet, so the date should not be entered at all. Next is personnel responsible for implementing goal. Check the boxes off for special education teacher, parent, and student, and then you can save. You are now done with the instructional plan section, and you can check that section back in. Next, look back to the IEP section at the top where it says instructional plan and choose program services from the drop-down. You've only got 2 short sections to go. Now that you're in program services, you'll need to check out this new section. For time frame A, you're going to type the letter A. For students' total instructional day in minutes, type 370. At the next drop-down box, choose 5 days a week. Don't forget to save your changes. Next, you'll need to press the plus sign next to the Services section. A long pop-up box titled Add Edit Service will come up. For service, you'll select Special Education Instruction. For service date, you'll enter the date of the IEP meeting. And for duration, you'll type 1 year. For frequency, you'll select weekly IEP. You'll select weekly, just weekly. And then for IEP individual or group, you'll select both. Now skip on down to the bottom where it says special class minutes. Here you'll type 200, and for special class sessions, you'll type 1. Don't forget to save your changes. At the bottom of the page for program services, you'll see special transportation. Generally, this will be no. In the comments section, type, the student will receive 200 minutes 1 day per week in a special setting. Don't forget to save. Now you're done with program services and you can click Check In. Look over to the IEP section again and use the drop-down list to change program services to Placement Least Restrictive Environment. You'll need to check out this last section. The home-based school has already been filled in for you. In the progress report text box, type the number 9 because you'll be issuing progress reports each 9 weeks. Next is the parent-student consent for services. Check the little box that says, I understand that if I disagree with any services or placement described on the IEP, I can pursue a solution to my complaint through the state's written dispute resolution options. Then you'll need to pre-type in the names and dates for signatures. Later after the IEP meeting, everyone's going to actually sign next to these typed names. But for now, just type in the name of the family member that will be attending the meeting, along with the date of the IEP meeting, and then at the bottom you'll type in the name of the ODR and again the date. Don't forget to save. You finished the last section. Go ahead and check in that section. And next you'll need to click the word Validate. When you click Validate, the eSER program will check your IEP draft to make sure everything is done and completely correct. At this time, your validation results should only have one issue. You should actually see a red X and a message that says, team meeting date cannot be greater than the current date. You're writing this IEP draft 6 weeks before the meeting, so this is expected. No worries. When you finalize your IEP on the date of the actual meeting, this validation result will no longer appear. Copy the red X message and paste it in your IEP to-do list to log your validation. At this point, it's going to be about 1 week before the IEP meeting. It's the perfect time, right on time, to email your supervisor, the gifted facilitator. Let him or her know that you've finished the IEP draft for your student. They'll review it, and if needed, they'll provide a little feedback to you so you can have time to make any adjustments they want you to make before the meeting. IEP prep is done. You'll have more work to do in 6 weeks when the IEP meeting comes up, but for now you're finished. To conclude things, let's take a last look at the timeline summary of the IEP prep process. About 8 weeks before the IEP anniversary, you'll reach out and communicate with the team, choosing a date and time that works for everyone. Then about 7 weeks before the anniversary date, you'll send out that official notice for the meeting, gather some data, and reach out to collaborators for their input for the IEP. And then about 6 weeks before the IEP anniversary, you'll complete all tasks related to actually drafting the IEP. I would like to leave you with a few handy hyperlinks. First, the IEP to-do list that served as the handout for this presentation. In the list, you'll find a host of other links to the programs and documents I referenced throughout the presentation. Second, I'll link the Google Slides activity I usually use with my students to gather information before I write my IEP. And then third, I'll link a blank copy of the IEP dates chart that I use to keep all my date information organized for all of my students in an entire school year. Thank you so much for joining me for this professional development presentation. I hope it's been informative and that you'll be able to use it as a new GT teacher in Terrebonne Parish to draft gifted IEPs successfully. Good luck.